Hello, bridge builders! I'm here with some exciting news. The first volume of interviews is now available on Amazon.com. The link can be found at eatlunchandboardgame.com. I promise that all proceeds from sales of this book will go right back into this podcast and channel. Whether that is new and better audio equipment for the podcast or video equipment for the YouTube channel, or even more games to review, the money will not be wasted. Click over to Amazon and get your copy of Eat Lunch and Board Game, the first course today. And thank you for supporting the show. All right, welcome back to Eat Lunch and Board Game. I'm your host, Adam Collins. And with me today is the director of Midwest GameFest, a convention in Kansas City, Brad Kelley. Brad, how you doing?
Great. How about you?
Sweating to death, man.
I hear it.
It's the end of August 2021, and we're still hitting 100 degrees here in St. Louis. It is disgusting.
It is. It's pretty raunchy.
But you're out there in Kansas City, so you get the weather about a day ahead of us.
Yeah. I'll let you know what's going to come. Do what I can here to help out.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Man, yeah, today is one of those days you just walk outside and you just start sweating. It's great. I said that you are Brad Kelley and that you are the director of Midwest Game Fest, and that is kind of what you do for the gaming community. What else do you do?
Well, I'm the Castellan of the Role Players Guild of Kansas City, which is the nonprofit that is that hosts Midwest Game Fest. That's responsible for it. The organizing body. And as the Castellan, it's like the vice president, but the main role is to organize the convention. It's an elected position, every year, and I've held this position since 2015, I think, and been the organizer of the con. And it's kind of a passion project, really enjoy it, get to meet people and do cool things and play games, meet new game players, new game designers. So that's kind of it, in a nutshell.
You do get to meet a lot of cool people doing your job. The fact you're elected every year means you're doing it well. No violent coups yet, so
Yeah. Well, of course, in any volunteer-based group, it's whoever is around gets the job, right? So.
Absolutely. So, how did you get into gaming?
Well, as the usual way, I guess. As a child, we had board games. Mom and Dad would buy board games, play board games. At that time, we're looking at Connect Four, Mousetrap, the Milton Bradley stuff, Monopoly, all that kind of sorry. So, and then in high school, I was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons by a friend, and we ended up going to college together. More Dungeons and Dragons, Hero System, Shadowrun, other games, Magic the Gathering, Talisman. So the world sort of exploded. Magic the Gathering took the world by storm. Everybody was playing Magic the Gathering, and then after college, Settlers of Catan came out. So there was a con in Southern Illinois in Carbondale called the Egyptian Campaign, and we would go there every year in college and beyond college, and we would get together with old friends and play games, and people would bring new games, and that's where I found Settlers, and it was a revelation. I'd never seen anything like it. The idea of you everyone sort of plays until the end, and there's this board, and it's random. It's a random board. It's different. Every game is different. All this whole thing, new horizon, like the world's exploding. So that was, that changed everything, and that was sort of the spark, I think, that got a lot of people thinking, about how these things could be done, and we're still seeing the fallout from that today.
So when did you get first introduced to Settlers of Catan?
I think it was 1995. I think.
Oh wow! Like the year it came out.
Yeah. So it was new at the time. I had never heard of it or seen it. My friend Buddy brought it to Egyptian Campaign. Played it. It was a blast. Loved it.
Yeah.
Played it for hours. Yeah.
First time you play it blows your mind. Because
Now,
well, yeah, now you're like,
now you're like,
they're
well,
doing.
can I place first? But I'm not placing first. I don't want to play. Or so it just there's all this strategy now because you know how it's going to go if you get boxed in and if you pick wrong and if all this stuff's in your head. There's so much anxiety now on placing
If the
that
dice
first
hate
plate.
you and there's a bunch of threes, it just
Oh
throws
yeah.
off your entire game
Oh my
plan. No,
gosh. Yeah.
I get it. I get it. I don't think I got introduced to it till probably 2008.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah, and which is funny because I got introduced to it by my cousin, and he introduced a lot of my cousins, all of us at the same time. And then I'm like talking to my brother, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I've been playing that game for years." And I'm like, "Why did you not tell me about this?" And my sister's like, "Yeah, our brother told me about it." And I'm like, "What is going on with you two? Why did you
It's a
not?
conspiracy.
Yeah, why did you not let me in on this amazing game?" I mean, it is such an eye opener to people who don't know about the gaming the hobby games, right?
Hmm.
Because like you said earlier, everybody knows the Milton Bradley, Parker Brother classics, the Hasbro games, the Operation and Clue and those games, but just Catan is such a different level.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and even if you
Uh,
go back and play the Spiel des Jahres winners before that, they're all like really good, but again, Catan just had that mass appeal, and
mhm.
it is still one of my top 5 games. I don't care what anybody says; it can stay in my top 5
Yeah,
forever.
no, it's a good game. It's cooperative plus competitive, and unless somebody's just being that guy, it can be a lot of fun, right? But if somebody purposely blocks you early in the game, then it's like, well, that was a fun, 10 minutes. Uh,
Well,
so
yeah, I had that happen at one of the monthly game event here, and my friend, she knows I'm good at Catan, so she rolls a 7 probably on the second go around, and she puts the robber to
mm,
block my
hmm
brick.
yeah,
No
ouch.
sevens come up. I can't get a dev card to get rid
Uh-huh.
of.
Right,
I'm drawing like
you're totally shut out.
points, and I'm like
Yeah.
2/3 of this deck are night cards, and I can't get one, and so I couldn't go anywhere, and it was like one of the most painful
Oh
games.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's that, right? And a lot of modern games, have diminished that kind of thing, right? It's really kind of hard to kind of be shut down like that in most other games these days. But I don't know. I still like that game. It just
Oh
depends on the
yeah.
people. It really kind of depends. If somebody's willing to shut somebody down early in the game, then that just kind of messes the whole thing up, all right? But as long as everyone's kind of willing to have a fun game, then it's great, and we can mash, sheep into wood, and we can we can make sheep out of straw. We can do all these things, and
Well, I'll tell you though, it's just as you're playing the game, it's so great. And then I think the other thing that kind of opened my eyes with that game was just the sheer amount of expansions
mhm.
and variants and scenarios and how they've gone into like a legacy style without calling it legacy, but they've done story driven. You play this map and then you play this map with and it's like, and this all started with just I'll give you a sheep for a wood, man. And nobody wants the sheep; they're worthless. But now we got boats, so now sheep have a reason to be
Now suddenly
around.
sheep's have yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So if I came to your house, what game is currently on your table? What is your flavor of the month?
Well, we don't keep games out. Now there is, I know, there is a D&D map downstairs on the table, uh, from my son's campaign. Most of my role playing game stuff is online these days,
Sure.
or I travel to a friend's house or something like that. But the only thing that you would find, I mean, there's the game shelf, big shelving downstairs, but the only one that's out is a D&D map with some figs left on it and some unwiped off drawings. So
Yeah, Roll 20's been really good for us.
yeah, well, it would have been a really, really, really bleak situation without a tool like that. And roll 20 it has a lot to be desired, but by the same token, it's both magical and wonderful, and also somewhat infuriating, all in one package. And
Oh yeah, the random number generator is garbage.
oh my gosh, I yeah.
There's no way. There's no way I can roll that many ones. Yeah, thank you for allowing me to crit my search check, but then fail epically on my stab check.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
What
and
was
just
my? What do I need to get through that? Oh yeah, shoot, I can roll a 12. I mean, I'm rolling a d20 plus 8, so all I gotta do is roll a 4. I rolled a what? A 1. Stupid random number generator.
yeah, it's really. I mean, I guess random is random, right? But boy, it sure seems like it's a real. I don't know. The other night I was running Shadowrun, and the poor players were just rolling terribly, and the guy was rolling initiative, and in Shadowrun you get a really high initiative, so he was rolling 20. He rolled a 26, and then something happened, and we rolled again, and he got another 26, and he rolled again, and because we're changing maps. And when you do that, the player can't see what their initiative was. You can see it as a ref, but the player can't see it, so they got to roll again, and he got another 26, which is like a curiously specific, sequence to get 3 times in a row. And I'm like, what's your math? What do you, and he was like, well, it's 17 plus, so many D6 in Shadowrun. It's this kind of crazy initiative system. And I was like, how come up that many, 3 times in a row? And you're right. Something seems like it's nuts. But what are you going to do?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I'll go into a hide check and I'll roll like a 52 because I'm plus an outrageous amount as my rogue, and I'll do like this massive hide check, and then like oh, he walked right by me, attack of opportunity, and I like drop my sword. I'm like, well, that was great. I could have just stood there, and he could have walked right over me and not even known I was there. But I took a chance to stab him, and I, jabbed myself in the thigh. Yeah, so
Yeah.
we've been playing that at lunch. So we got Buddy actually out in Kansas City. She's out in Kansas City. Then we've got a buddy that's in Indianapolis, and then the other 3 of us are here in St. Louis. And so we log on 2-3 times a week into Roll20 and at lunch and play our D&D campaign.
Wow. So D&D over lunch.
Yeah,
Wow. Holy mackerel.
slow and steady.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. You're
Yeah,
living the
we have a lot of
life.
fun. It's I mean, we've been at it for about a year now. This one campaign. I mean, we're all like level 15 or whatever, so we're
Yeah.
working our way through it. But we're having a good time.
Yeah.
So, do you play board games at lunch?
Not usually, right? So, I used to work with a guy, and that was his thing, and we did. But we don't work together anymore, and I've never really run into anybody, and I've never been the one to say, "Hey, everybody, I brought this game. Let's play this over lunch." Because I'm still in that mindset. Was a nerd from in an age when being a nerd was not something that you wanted to really let people know about. And I still, people I work with, if they don't know that that I play D&D and Shadowrun and all these games, that's a win for me, right? I'm just happy not to bring it up, because you never know. You never know what you're gonna run into, and what that's gonna
How
say
that?
to people.
Yeah, how that's gonna
Honestly, though,
sit?
yeah. Although, and sometimes in meetings, people will like see stuff in the background, and they'll be like, "Is is that Settlers of Catan, or is that Waterdeep Dragon Heist, or is that?" And I'm like, "Yes." Like, do you know what that is? Like, yeah, I'm in a campaign. I do. Like, okay, great. And we talk, and but I'm just kind of cagey about it, So
You're like, no.
no, it's not. I'm just going to turn up the.
Yeah, is my camera on? Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I came from a company, my last company, a bunch of us just started playing games together. And then as we hired more younger people, of course, now, like you were saying, we grew up when it wasn't really cool to
Mm,
be a nerd. And now they show up and then they're like, you guys play games? Oh, man. And then they bring their games in. And now all of a sudden we've got like I laughed. I had to move my office at work and I had like 18 games in my desk at work.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, I don't think when they gave me this cube, I was supposed to fill all these drawers and shelves with games. But the thing is, everybody knew, I kept games at work that were playable in an hour.
Hmm.
That was our big thing. Like we wanted a game that we could get in and play in an hour and go back to work. We didn't want to have to take pictures or try to lie about needing the conference room for 2 days so we can play it. But that's so like that's what we did, and that's what kind of drove me to do this podcast. Is I'm like, there has to be other giant nerds out there like me that want to play games with their coworkers, and I
Yeah.
try to focus on games that you can play during an hour or a lunch half hour. So if you had a lunch hour, 60-minute games, what is your go-to 60-minute game?
Whew, I play quite a lot of games with my family still, and sometimes remotely when we travel. And sometimes those games take longer than the box will say, right? So we play a game of
No.
Splint. Yeah. So Ticket to Ride or something. That I think that's like a 30 or maybe 45-minute game. I'm not looking at the box, but it's something, it's supposed to be shorter than what we take to play it. And we'll take an hour easily,
Yeah.
to play a game of Ticket to Ride at
Well,
least.
Ticket to Ride is a great game. I mean, it'll take an hour. That's one of those games where like you get 4 or 5 people, so all the tracks are available. Everybody's fighting for every track, every route, and you get done and you made this gigantic circle to connect for 5 points. You spent all your trains for 5 points. Well, you blocked me here, and then you blocked me there. I mean, we played Ticket to Ride to death. It's so great. And then Splinter's in it, like you said, Splinter is really good, and you can get that one. It's about a 40-minute game,
Hmm.
depending on player count. It's one of those ones that you wish you could get done in half an hour, so you could just shuffle it up and play it again, but you never quite get that 30-minute mark.
Yeah, yeah. So my mom, sidebar, and you can edit this out if you need to. My mom, sweetest person you'll ever meet, has started playing Ticket to Ride, like against the computer on like her iPad or something. And so we get back together after she's been doing this for like a month, playing it a lot. And she's getting that route in Nashville. There's like that one little spot. She like starts there. She does this, and she's doing these other things. I'm like, what are you doing? Like this is a friendly game. It's a friendly game. She'll take both spots into Seattle, and I'm like, what are you trying to pull here? We're gonna. And she's like, what? I'm just playing. It's the way the game's played. I'm like, yeah, but I'm your son.
She's like, I. So I was like, that's where I was going. I've never like let my son win. My son has been legitimately whooping me since he was 3 years old at King of Tokyo,
Mm,
and he started off beating me like 2 or 3 straight games in King of Tokyo, and hasn't let up since. And I don't let up. So when we play to win.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then when mom gets involved, every now and then I'll be like, "Come on, buddy, you know that was a bad move. You were helping mom out there." But then sometimes like he's ruthless to mom, and I'm like, "Whoa, buddy, whoa,
We
we
gotta
got to
live
find that."
together.
Yeah. We she knows where you sleep, man. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I understand. It's always what I was saying. Your mom's like, I don't let my kids win. Your mom is ruthless at Ticket to Ride.
I know. It's like that one game. She's like a knife fighter.
Yeah, we got my parents playing Roll for It, and because you can play it over Zoom. It's easy game. You set the cards out, and everybody's kind of rolls their dice. And then I got everybody playing. And I mean everybody. Like I feel like Wolfgang Varsh owes me some money. I got everybody playing. That's pretty clever that I know. Like everybody has a copy of that, and even my parents are like, "This game is great." We play that over Zoom, and they're like, "Okay, so I left you an orange 5 and a green 2," and it's like, man, who would have thought at the beginning of the pandemic here that I would be playing? That's
Yeah,
pretty
exactly.
clever with my parents over Zoom.
Yeah.
But so back to the questions. 30-minute game, lunch half hour.
30 minutes. I would probably pick up. it would depend on how many people, right? If it's two people, I would probably play Splendor. If it's more than that, boy, I don't know. I don't know. 30 minutes, I would be hard pressed, honestly, because we talk and chat and think and noodle and whatever. We don't play games quickly. You know,
Some people just don't.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, King of Tokyo. If I was
Oh,
challenged, right, to find something, I think King of Tokyo is a pretty quick game. I would probably run with that. Um, there's an older game. Well, I mean, Magic. We could play Magic all through lunch. Pretty quick. There was an old game called Mythos that was like a collectible card game centered around the Cthulhu mythos. Probably get a couple of games of that in a half hour. So, but I don't know. So here's like the problem, right? Because these questions are challenging for me because at lunch I'm usually grabbing something to eat, and I can usually work through lunch, and so it's one of those things where there's just so much going on that I find it difficult to kind of shift gears, and to uh, do something else, and
sure. It depends on what you do during your day job. I was an estimator for a large company, so it was nice because kind of like turn that part of my brain
hmm
off and then turn on another part of my brain and go play a game with my coworkers. But yeah, we would also gravitate a lot towards like Seven Wonders.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
it's a good game.
there at the end we got into they got into I didn't I find social deduction games to be kind of grating after about two plays because it just becomes a giant shouting match, and then everybody remembers what happened last time, and then it's like, oh my gosh. And so we had to ban Secret Hitler from the office for a little while because people were yelling things they shouldn't be yelling in the middle of an office setting.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you can't be
Well,
yelling, no.
that's a fair point, socializing when you think about that. But like Coup would be a good quick game.
coup
I'm
is
not sure.
coup is super fast.
Yeah, that may be a micro game, maybe. I mean, like much shorter, but that's a fun game, and you can get a lot of iterations of those in. You get a few fun people who can remember the roles, then it's it's great.
Oh yeah, we had coup. Love Letter was another one we would, if we had real quick hits.
hmm
Love Letter and coup were really good. So a hidden gem guilty pleasure game.
Oh boy, 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 guilty pleasure.
These are the
Um,
ones that my guests have come up with. Some of the most outrageous games I've never heard of, and then of course I write it down, and then I go find it. And this is where I've come up found some of the craziest games from this from this question.
wow. Well, I gotta tell you, my guilty pleasures on board games is in buying them and not playing them. So
Yes.
I know that's kind of sad, right? But I'll back. I got so many games sitting around in wrappers, not opened, not punched, that I'll never get to them. I'm a big Shadowrun fan, so they had a Kickstarter last year, maybe year before last, for a game called Sprawl Ops, and I backed it big, got a big old box of the game. I opened it when it showed up, and I was like, "Wow, this is freaking amazing! It's all this cool stuff." And then I closed the box back up, and it's still sitting on a shelf. So I don't even know how to play the game. And I don't know, it was like $100 or something, And that's kind of the story. I got all. If you look at this, you can't see it, but there's like a big uh, closet over here with the door shut on it, and inside is games that will probably never be picked up.
Yeah. Yeah, the good old shelf of shame that just keeps growing. At the start of the pandemic, I think I had like three games on my shelf of shame. And I started this podcast over the pandemic. Also, everything that I had backed on Kickstarter for like the last year just shows up.
hmm
And now my shelf of shame, because of all of that, and especially because of you guests on my show, say, "Oh man, you got to go track down this game called Battle Ball from 2003." Um, I've got a shelf of shame now that just it's insane. And I told my son, like, oh, I'm not buying any more games. So we played through all of them. He's like, yeah, Dad, that'll happen. And we get like 2 games out of it. And then it's like, oh, man, look what I found on, But that's also like a sign of the times, right? Like, right now, we are in a pandemic, and everybody had all this free time on their hands to clean out their closets. And people got rid of, you know, everything: clothes, board games, movies, books. So you take it. So we were joking. We would take like a tub of junk to Goodwill and then fill it back up with stuff and bring it home. It's like this is what's supposed to happen, right? We took all these baby clothes out, but then we came back with some board games and more clothes. It's like,
Yeah, exactly.
were we actually gaining space? So you mentioned Kickstarter. So
Yeah.
you're a backer. Are you a creator?
Well, not for games. I made a Kickstarter in 2014 for a small convention here called BobCon, and successful. It funded. It did really well, and we had a great time. It was an event in a, the budget was like nothing compared to this other stuff you see. So not really a creator, but that was a really fun educational project. Around that time, I had some people in the convention world that I knew. Monty Cook was doing their super successful, Numenera Kickstarter back then around that time period, and it was like like the future. We were just going to keep funding conventions with this process. Um, on our end, I mean, they take around 10%, right? Which on a
Yeah.
huge budget, maybe that's on our budget, that was kind of a problem. And so we funded Midwest Game Fest the same way, like the following year, having had experience with BobCon, and it worked. It was a real hassle because of the logistics involved of reconciling the purchases that you get from Kickstarter with your database of attendees and your event system, and it was a real nightmare. And we were like, you know what, maybe let's just not do that again. And
Maybe next year we don't do that.
maybe we don't do that. Yeah, exactly. So it was kind of a fun experiment. Several cons, like a CanCon, used Kickstarter here in town for a couple of years, and then they had the same basic problem. They were just like, well, why are we giving 10% every year? We can do something else. And you don't see a lot of conventions using that anymore. Everybody's kind of figured out that's not a good model. But for board games and real creation, it's fantastic. I back so much map sets, uh, board games that would never see the light of day, in another time. And comic books and so much stuff. It's just a
Yep.
renaissance.
Yep. Graphic novels, comic books.
Yeah.
My latest addiction is print and play, just back at the print and play level. I still want to support the creator, but I don't
Mm,
need your box of a game that's never going to get played. I'll just take your files and put it on a hard drive and never print them off.
yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, Kickstarter. Yeah, it knows where my wallet is.
Have you played? So backing up a second, have you played a game called Quicks? Speaking of like short, quick games,
Oh yeah,
it's
the
a
dice game.
yeah, the dice
Yeah.
game. I get a kick out of that, and that's you
Oh
can play that with
yeah.
2 or 4, maybe 5. I don't remember how many people it scales to. It kind of keeps your brain functioning, and it's very clever, and there's a lot of more depth to it than than you would seem, and
Oh
it's kind
yeah.
of a push your luck plus some strategy. So
Oh yeah.
interesting
We played
combination.
Quicks. Quinto is another one, kind of very similar. Then of course the clever games. That's pretty clever, twice as clever, and then clever cubed. Then the challenge boards for those. Then I've really spun off into some crazy print and plays. Like these ones on Kickstarter, they're like $3. Like that's their whole
Oh wow,
campaign. Is like the $3 print and play, and their goal is $50, and it's like, so it's like you can't lose. And the
yeah,
next thing
you
you
really
know,
can't lose.
like I said, the next thing you know, you got a hard drive that's like full of gigabytes of print and plays. It's
Hmm.
like, my goodness. But oh yeah, one of my latest obsessions in the print and play side is Restaurantpreneur by the Dark Imp, and it was a mechanic of roll and write that I'd never seen before, and I enjoy it. It's like there's 5 mini games, and so you roll 3 dice. You choose one is what game number you play. One of them is used in the game, and then the third one is you have a bucket of or pool of money, and so you choose, so I'll use this one for the game. I'll use the 3 in the game, and then I'll use the 5 to pay for it. And then once you run out of a pool, then you're out.
Yeah.
And you're trying to like staff your restaurant and get a location and build a menu and do marketing. It's a hoot, and it's just an absolute hoot. And I play it again. It's just a rolling right. You can play over Zoom. So my buddy in Chicago plays it, and he's on his lunch hour. I'm on my lunch hour. We're rolling 3 dice and building a restaurant.
Yeah, sounds cool.
It's a lot of fun. So the director of Midwest Game Fest, what all goes into, and I mean, we don't have a limited time, but what all goes into putting on a convention? I put on a gaming weekend, which is nowhere close to a gaming convention.
Well, there's a lot, right? And we try to delegate as much as possible. I'm not much of a very good delegator, but we do have a great staff, people who are in charge of volunteers and registration and the game library. So our convention is, much smaller than something like Geekway. It's in the 700 to 800 person range. It's at for the last, I don't know, 5 years or so. It's been at the same place, Stony Creek Hotel here in Independence. It's about a 20,000 square foot venue. We've got probably about half role playing, a third board games, and a third miniatures gaming. So wrangling the different groups, there's a live action group that does. It's called Heroes of Rokugan. They do live action and tabletop L5R. So Legends of the Five Rings. Feudal Japanese fantasy genre. We coordinate with those guys. They write their own modules. They have their own organized play group. We provide them space, and on Saturday nights they have an interactive, which is everyone's in costume. It's like a LARP, and we accommodate that space. We work with lots of exhibitors. We're always trying to, figure out ways to accommodate the needs of exhibitors, and we sell out our space really, really quickly. And this year, painfully, we sold it out really almost before it was open. So I went to CantCon, another convention here in town. Great convention, by the way, CantCon here in town. KANTCON.com. I was basically assaulted by exhibitors. Trying to sign up, for spaces. And so we basically filled up there. I had a map that I happened to have with me. I penciled people in, and we had agreements on pretty much all the spaces. And so then I was like, well, shucks. So we got to figure out how we're going to get more spaces, because we haven't even opened this up to, and we were combining with another event here in town called Recruits. And I knew there were going to be a lot of exhibitors who hadn't had a chance to get in. So we found a way to get more spaces. So it's space allotment, trying to figure out the secret sauce on the formula between what exhibitors do you want. You don't want everybody who is exactly the same, right? You don't want 20 booths where everyone's selling stickers. You want a mix, and so you kind of have to figure that out. And some people we have to turn away or do something else with, or maybe turn into some type of promotion for them. Organized play groups, Adventures League, Pathfinder, Shadowrun, those types of things. We coordinate with those people, make sure they have tables, make sure they have what they need. And blood drive, we have a Red Cross blood drive, so we coordinate with those people. Harvesters, a regional food bank here in town, we work with those guys, and we're always looking for interesting kind of odd things to bring in. And relationships keep this kind of stuff going. And so it's just a lot of, honestly, it occupies pretty much every waking moment of every day.
Oh,
So
that's all.
that's all. Yeah. Yeah. So
That's awesome. I mean, that's amazing, and I'm not as active. I'm not part of the Geekway board. I know a lot of the Geekway board here in St. Louis. I play games with a lot with some of them, but I've never stepped behind the curtain there and
see how the sausage is made.
Yeah, I don't know if
I,
I want to.
yeah, honestly, if I knew now,
Yeah.
if I knew in 2014 when I was getting involved that I would never get to play a game at the convention again, I would probably not get involved because I used to go and play games at every slot the whole 4 days, and it was fantastic. I loved it. And then I got more and more involved, and it was like fewer and fewer games got to be played. And now it's like I'm busy the whole con.
Yeah.
So
You're sleeping when you can.
yeah, exactly.
No, I had a booth a couple of Geekways ago for my own company, and yeah, I didn't play a lot of games that year. You know, they shut the vendor hall down at 5, but I was exhausted. I've been talking and you know selling my wares all day long, and
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
tired and just kind of reached the end of the day. And I think it was Saturday night. Like the guy next to me. He's like, "Oh, I brought my prototype. But I need a break. You want to be back here?" So like we left and met back up like 10 p.m. and
Oh
we
my goodness.
played till like 1 a.m.
Whoa.
And then we both like stumbled in Sunday morning. Like, well, we should have met up earlier. That was kind of dumb. But I keep hounding him about it because he was all set and he was starting to do some advertising for his game, and then you know COVID, and he's
Oh yeah.
just kind of stepped back and he's gonna put on the back burner. But but I've taken the time with my business partner, and we've got 2 games that we're getting ready to take the Kickstarter. Hopefully, one in October, and then probably the other one will be late November, early December when we run the second campaign. Try to get them both in this year.
Mhm.
Really started this year. I don't know when we'll end the second one,
Yeah.
but we got it's different running a company than running a convention, I'm sure. But like you said earlier, for us to go to Kickstarter and get the financial start for a game, it's huge for us.
Yeah. Mhm.
And then trying to build a company around it, we had a rough go on our first Kickstarter, our first game, but we got funded, and then that's when all the problems started, and it
Yeah.
was rough, but we got through it.
Was it
Uh,
a full like an overcommitment on rewards or what? I mean, that's typically.
so no, not at all. So what happened was we tried to keep it all local or stateside, and I was working with a company in Chicago that also was a print shop by day. So they're kind of like a Kinko's, but they had other printing capabilities.
Mhm.
And he had made a couple of his games that I bought him and did my board game designer thing. I'm looking at it and twisting it and looking underneath the hood of the game. Like, okay, this guy's legit. And so he made prototypes for our game that we sent out for reviews. And so it wasn't, so it's a tile laying game. And so it wasn't like chipboard like everybody was expecting, but it was like a really sturdy like card stock, like pressed card
Mhm.
stock. And so some of the early complaints were like, I wish it was chipboard. And I'm like, yeah, but this stuff isn't going to, this isn't going to bend. Like we play tested it around the office more, and it wasn't going to bend.
Yeah.
Then what happened was we released the order to him, and he panicked. And by not having to go to China, by having it be, I'm in St. Louis, this guy's in Chicago. He's 4.5, 5 hours straight north.
You could literally drive there, get product, and bring it back if you absolutely needed to. Yeah.
Yeah. So even worse, my business partner was a project manager of a job in the Chicago area.
So he
So
was going to
he
be there.
so he was just going to be up there and just
Mhm.
borrowed a truck from his brother and was just going to take all of it, throw it in his truck, and drive back. Well, the guy
Oh yeah.
panicked, and we got enough to get through Geekway and start the fulfillment process. And then we found out that the quality was just not there.
Oh
It's a square
man.
tile game, and when they're not square, and when you're missing bleed and you're cutting into tiles, they're not matching up.
Yeah.
So then we had to stop, find a new production, had to go to China.
Oh man, yeah,
Which had we gone there the first place, we would have been fine. We would have
yeah.
totally blown our quick turnaround. But that was the other thing, is we had a quick turnaround because the guy was the 5 hours up
Oh
north,
yeah.
and
Hmm.
we were good to go. And so then we had to find him, China. Then we had to learn all of that stuff because we didn't bother learning any of that stuff because we didn't have to learn it.
Right.
Then the game weighed more, so it went from 1 pound to 2 pounds, and so
Yeah.
now it went
Wow.
from
This is
three
like the
dollars
this
to
is this is like the worst. This is like the nightmare scenario
yeah.
for
Oh,
a consumer.
absolutely. No question. Because we went from like $3 a game to $8 a game, so we lost $5 for every game we mailed out.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it just like it was just compounding problems.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
in the end, the game that we got into the hands of our backers was a better quality game. A more, I don't say better quality. That's not right. It was a more traditional
Hmm.
quality. So instead of so they all came on like the cardboard carcass of the 6 tiles per punch out and everything. And so yeah, it wasn't a overcommitment on stretch goals or not understanding any. Had it worked the way we intended it to work, or had we just gone to China in the first place, we would have been fine.
Hmm. Yeah.
Instead, we came out about $3,000 in the hole.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh. Well, that could have been worse. 3,000. You can man you can man. It's like a learning experience, right?
it wasn't like you said. It wasn't a overcommitment on something. We didn't promise metal coins that screwed
Hmm.
us or something like that. It was one of those things that once the problem started, it was like you just couldn't plug all the like. It wasn't you couldn't plug the hole and move on. It was the old cartoon. You plug this hole and then this hole open
Yes,
and then
exactly. Yeah.
and then you've only got so many fingers and arms and legs and toes. But we got through it. We learned a lot, and since that time, met up with other people and other groups, and so we've had a lot of fun. And the next game that we're going to do, we're going to go, straight from China to begin with, and then the following game, which is an 18 card game, and so we're going to run that probably straight through the Game Crafter because the
Hmm.
Game Crafter is really stepping their game up. They're about halfway to where they need to be. I'm like, man, if they would just bite the bullet and just go for it. I think what they do is they look at the bottom line, right? And they're like, it's going to cost us, let's say, $10 million to get everything production wise to compete with China. And I'm like, yes, but your ROI on that is going to be so
So
fast.
much more.
You're going to be booked so fast. Yeah, and but they look at that big red number and they're like,
Oh yeah.
and I'm like,
Well,
I don't want to
yeah.
say you
I
got to
mean,
spend money to make money, but man, they're not hurting doing what they do now, and I'm like on competing with Panda and all that. Man, they could
I think he had
slaughter.
the, I think he had the fear of God put in him with the tabletop events, refund problem from last year, and eating all those event cancellation fees, and um, I maybe I haven't talked to him in forever, but that could be what's going on, because all this is still, we're still in the middle of all this. It's not over, but
Yeah, unfortunately, it is not all over. We won't go into the politics behind that because nobody wants to listen to a board game podcast talking about the politics of that. But
yeah,
it is not all over, which is unfortunate. So the convention scene is just starting to open back up right now.
see
See
what
what's going
happens.
on. Yeah,
Yeah,
see.
exactly.
There's a lot going on, and Geekway's like very beginning of October, so we'll see.
Well, good luck. I wish you luck. It's exciting to hear about these projects, and it's an exciting time to be a game maker.
Yeah,
Like you said, game craft. We have several. There's a group in town of a consortium of independent game developers, and a lot of them rely on Game Crafter. And kind of like what you were saying, they don't have the capacity to really get the price, down where it really needs to be for that to make sense, right? I mean, it makes sense in small quantities, print on demand. It kind of makes sense, but like for the price points to be what they really need to be, it needs to be dramatically lower,
Yeah,
and it's
I
exciting to
yeah.
yeah.
So that's what we were joking with my partner. We were talking about our next game is called Shark Hunt. So I'll just say it. So I quit saying our next game. It's called Shark Hunt. We put it together and we're going to order 10 prototypes from GameCrafter. We know that they're going to cost us, X dollars a piece. But then I went ahead and did the math. I'm like, what would 500 be? And it's like
Yeah.
X minus like $3. It's like that you can't. And then it's like, well, at 1,000.
Yeah.
But that's where like where I was saying though, like there's about 5 years ago probably was the time for them to say we should make this move, and they didn't. And I think every year the the barrier for entry for them is just going to get higher for them to jump in whole hog.
Mhm.
So we'll see. I like the Game Crafter. They're great for fast iteration playtesting. They're great for like we have a deck building game we're working on, and so we're like not sure which cards will work. We're like, we'll just print them all, and
Yeah,
then
right, right.
we'll print them all, and then we'll just take out the ones we don't want. And that's honestly how we got that game's called Pirates. That's how we got Pirates to where it is. Is we just ordered the original deck. Then we didn't like half of them. Then we were like, well, what about this? What about that? So we just like drafted up all of them and just ordered a whole new, a whole bunch more. So this whole stack of more cards show up, and they were like looking through them, and okay, we need to get rid of all these and add all these in and test that. Okay, so we're getting there. Let's add these in, take these out. Okay, and GameCrafter for that is great for prototypes. It's great because they are fast and you can get them in weeks versus months and get them into the hands of reviewers or other people just to get playtests in. But I wouldn't go there for full production. If my intent is to run a company, I am with Bearded Board Games. We cannot do production through GameCrafter.
Yeah, and if you're going to use a distribution channel, and if you're trying to get into, Walmart, then that is not even, a remote possibility with something like GameCrafter. But it remains a fascinating, amazing tool. I buy stuff from them. I buy just meeples
Oh yeah,
from them, and you know,
I've completed games that I bought
yeah.
at a thrift shop by buying, like you said, I bought roads to complete a game for my wife. Like I bought the print and play, so I had this big thing printed out, but you really needed roads, and what they sent you in the print and play, obviously just a flat piece of paper you cut
Hmm.
up. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I don't want a flat piece of paper. So I got on GameCraft and ordered all these like black and purple roads so that we could play the game, and it's fine. Yeah, they're great to fix games. I fixed a game of Advance to Monopoly. I was missing the discs, so I just ordered wooden discs to complete the
Yeah,
game.
yeah.
And like you said, meeples. You can order custom colored meeples. Throw down your. You could buy whatever color meeples you want to go play Carcassonne.
Yeah, and they have big ones too. They have like 25 or inch tall meeples. So I use those for figs for, like, okay, who's Mr. Red and who's Mr. Green and who's Mr. Orange, and I use those for figs in D&D and Shadowrun, because it's just really handy. You know,
Your D&D boards, your masterful.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome.
I know. And because you never have the right fig for what the people are carrying anyway, and so it might as well be a little abstract, and it's hard to damage those acrylic meeples. So you can put them in a box, put other things in there, and
That's
yeah.
awesome.
I saw a dude the other day at Planet Comic Con running a D&D game with bottle caps, and I was like, it was like, you could, because it's all abstract. This is where you are, this is where you are, and I just never entered my mind to do something that kind of low tech, but very functional. I just thought it was very, very clever. I walked up and I love this idea. You know, love it.
Exactly. Take it. It's free. Here all week. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Bottle caps for D&D. No, that's the rogue bottle cap. You need the orc bottle cap. Start judging based on which beer it is. I don't know if that beer is strong enough to be an orc. You might want to find the Guinness one for that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Brad, I'd like to thank you for coming on my show today. It's been a gas. I look forward to getting out to Midwest Game Fest whenever the stars align for it.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, I tried to go a couple years ago, and I couldn't get any. Like my partner, I couldn't get the finances together and the vacation days lined up, and then last year obviously was a punt. So one of these years I'll get out there. I had it all, I got friends out in Kansas City, so I got a place to crash.
Well, we love to have you. Love to have you.
Yeah, it'll be good. It'll happen sometime. Make it into Geekway. We'll hang out.
All right, I will. Sounds good.
So if anybody wants to reach out to you, Brad, how can they find you?
MidwestGameFest.org, right, on the web. Email at director@midwestgamefest.org. Also on Discord. And honestly, I don't know how to discover us on Discord, although there's a link at the website.
There you go.
Join the community.
I like how important your email sounds as director.
Director.
You have to say it that way when you're typing it out. Director at Midwest Gaming. Yeah. Yes. Otherwise, it doesn't get through. If you don't say it with that, the computer knows. And as always, you can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/eatlunchandboardgame or email me at eatlunchandboardgame@gmail.com. And remember, board games build bridges.
Stay in tune with all things sports around Indiana and the nation with the Crash Course Podcast. Each week, we tackle the big storylines from the world of the Colts, Pacers, and the Indiana college scene, while also keeping a pulse on the nation. We record live weekly at twitch.tv/3C Media and can be found on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, wherever podcasts can be heard, you can catch the Crash Course Podcast.
When you're gaming, why not be comfy? Go over to supportplayer.org. Click on the cards, pieces, and dice to get some merch. These t-shirts are some of the most comfortable I have ever worn. That's supportplayer.org, and there's a link on eatlunchandboardgame.com.